of Causeway Strategy Group. So we are going to talk about this picture. Let's just remind our viewers of what it looks like. This is an AI-generated image. Now, you may think that this immediately looks like Jesus. Donald Trump says that it's him as a doctor. I'm interested in your thoughts, Mehek, not just on the image, but the fact that it was taken down.
Look, I think that there's this moral outrage in the media today anytime the White House puts something up, even in jest and in joke. And I find it ironic because the same mainstream media actually never protects Christians. They actually never stand up. Look at what happened in Minneapolis as Christians were praying on a Sunday. They had rioters come in. They were dragged out of the churches. Children were terrified. And most mainstream media didn't even want to cover it. So I don't play in this humor game because I think media tries to blow it out of proportion. But I do think President Trump has a point about the Pope. It is one thing to talk about the human cost of war. It's another thing to take your Pope hat off and act like the President of the United States and talk about the military and intelligence that he has no business talking about. And there is a just war doctrine in Catholicism. I'm a new Catholic. 7 to 8 years, that's new to me. And I've learned about the just war doctrine. When you see innocent lives being threatened, when you see America being threatened, President Trump did everything right. And for the Pope to come out and then wave his religious wand and start attacking the president on the world stage is just wrong.
But we've had the Pope, John, really just talk about the need for peace, saying that religion shouldn't be used to justify war. I mean, can you characterize this as an attack on Donald Trump, or is he merely going by his own beliefs?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciated the Holy Father's comments this morning when he was asked about it, and he said he wasn't going to lose much sleep over it. I pray for that every single day in these Trump years. But I will say this. I mean, what the Pope has been doing is preaching the gospel. And I take your point on the just war comments. And many people have been talking about the reaction from the president as a result of the interview that took place on CBS, where the 3 American cardinals actually talked about what they're hearing in their own communities, right? And this exact question of just war was brought up. And the 3 cardinals all kind of said in agreement that this doesn't really meet the threshold for just war, because the president has yet to kind of give a clear path to how we're going to move towards peace. So I understand that point you're trying to raise theologically, but the Holy Father and the cardinals have all kind of said in agreement that that is something that we have not met. What I find almost more disturbing is not just this AI-generated image, but actually something that Cardinal Cupich said when he talked about this yesterday. And it wasn't just about the kind of image of the president when he made himself look like the Pope. It wasn't this one where he made himself look like Jesus. It was actually the kind of video game-styled videos that the White House has been putting out, almost glorifying war, with kind of like a funny background track and these kind of, like hyped up imagery to make this seem kind of macho and cool. And that's actually something where I think that the church has a really powerful voice in sitting and saying that this is not something that we should glorify. This is something we should quickly try and find our way out of this conflict because of just the human cost of this conflict. And I mean, I think that this kind of moral voice of the church is very welcome at the moment, which is why you're seeing so many people kind of find their way back to the church.
Mehek, would you not rather see the president just kind of absorb this privately rather than putting these kind of images out there and not just rising above whatever it is that the Pope's saying that he doesn't agree with? Why does it have to go to these levels? Obviously, he has a track record for this kind of thing, but this seems, to a lot of people, this is really egregious.
Well, I think when the Pope is saying that the threat to Iran is truly unacceptable, he's crossing the line and the threshold between making sure that we reach a ceasefire for peace. Those are all things that we agree with. But when he's dipping his toe in foreign policy on a foreign stage, that's when President Trump is pushing back and specifically stating that the Pope doesn't know what he's talking about today. He doesn't have the intel. He doesn't have the know-with-all. He's the Pope, and that's where he belongs. And he's actually getting into the political lane, and he's playing armchair politics. And I find that to be just diluting what Americans are doing. And he's an American. I think that's the worst part. Has he talked about what the Iranians are going through? Has he talked about their suffrage? Has he talked about the fact that we've been going through 50 years of an Iranian regime that's held us hostage, the thousands that have died in our embassies that are Americans? I mean, that's where I think the Pope needs to actually be fair and balanced today. And we can argue about the just war doctrine, but at the end of the day, there's a plan for peace. Iran is never going to give up their nuclear weapons. So they have have to be dealt with. And President Trump is making sure that those proxies that are outside of Iran aren't going to be attacking Americans or any of our allies.
John, sorry, go ahead.
The Holy Father isn't a pundit or a politician. He's a pastor, right? And I think that that's actually an important voice that we need in this kind of